The selection tool is up here at the very front of the toolbar, and if you can't see it, it may be because the cutter tool is there because they do share the same spot. But the selection tool is the black arrow, and it's probably the most important tool that you have because that's the selection tool is the tool with which you will interact with all of your artwork. We use the selection tool to obviously select the artwork, but also to move the artwork. You can move the pieces of your artwork individually, or you can select them all and move them as a group. The selection tool is also used to scale and stretch your artwork. It can be used to rotate the artwork as well. It can be used to skew the artwork by grabbing the sides and moving up and down. There's all kinds of things that you can do with the selection tool. You can also use the selection tool when you want to change colors. If you were to select your artwork, you can go to the colors area and pick out a new color by tapping on that color, and there you have a new color. You can also select individual parts of your drawings and just change the color on a certain part. You can grab a certain stroke and move that stroke. There's a million things that we're going to do with the selection tool, and there's quite a few little tricks to it, so let's just jump right in and take a look at how to use the selection tool. The first choice you're going to make with the selection tool is whether you're going to use it as a rectangular marquee selection or as a lasso selection. So if you come over here to tool properties, you will see that the selection tool is selected, and your first option here is a little lasso, or if you hold down on it, it's a marquee. And a marquee selection means that you drag over your shapes. I'm on the wrong layer. You drag over your shapes and it selects it in a square. You can also deselect something by simply tapping on a blank area of the canvas, as I have done there. But I find it more useful to use the lasso tool for freehand drawing. That way you can get in and you can just pick out the things that you want to. And let me just change the color on that. Again, it's selected. I can go over to any of the color palettes and press on a color, and it has changed the color. And now to deselect, all I need to do is tap onto the blank canvas, and that portion of the drawing is now deselected. There's also a very cool option within the selection tool, and that's on the far right. There's a choice called Select by Color, and with that tool chosen, you can see it's selected when it has a box around it. I can go over to the drawing and just tap on any item of a particular color, and it has selected everything in this layer that is that color. So for example, if I want to select everything that's red, I'll just have to tap one of the red items, and then I can delete them by hitting the delete button. Now I just hit undo to undelete them, but it shows you that even though I didn't have to go around with the normal select tool and try to worm around and pick out everything that's red, it's much easier just to use the Select by Color tool, tap on a color, and then you can move those objects. You can cut them and paste them, move them to another layer. There's all kinds of different things that you can do with that. But make sure when you're finished using that tool that you deselect it so that you can go back to selecting normally afterwards. Before you've actually selected something, a lot of these options are grayed out. But if we use the selection tool and actually have a selection chosen and selected, and you can tell it's selected because it has these colored outlines around every individual stroke. Once we have something that's selected, we now have more options under this area. So for example, this allows us to flip whatever is selected horizontally. And also likewise next to it, we can flip our selection vertically. Now it doesn't have to be the whole thing either. I could just choose this letter E and then flip that horizontally or flip it vertically. Again, to deselect, tap a blank area of the canvas. So let's select that all again. You can also rotate clockwise by 90 degrees by pressing this button. and pressing the other button, you can rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise as well. Now notice when I select this letter E that it's made up of the 3 different strokes, and those strokes can move independently, and it may be that you don't want that to happen. So if that's the case, you'll want to flatten your strokes to make them into one object. And the way I did that is I'm going to select the letter E, which contains 3 strokes, and then go over here and hit this button called Flatten. And now all of a sudden this is one single object that's not going to break apart when I move it or drag it.